Hi everyone, my name is Maria Morales. I'm here with my partner in this collaboration, Sam.
Hi, my name is Sam Prudente. I'm Maria's cohort at the University of Washington, Bothell, MA in Cultural Studies program.
And together we decided to work on this project focused on overseeing some documentation within the hiring process for Fred Hutch in order to provide some recommendations with the framework of a BIPOC lens. So we wanted to share this with you, and this is again framing it from a BIPOC lens and what BIPOC folk recommend. Um, the job search can often feel like, a lonely uphill climb for BIPOC folk, and for many mountains loom in the way. Um, Wait, I think this was your slide, right?
That's okay.
And so we wanted to do this work in order to give you kind of our experience as BIPOC folk, maybe some recommendations, keeping in mind some of the things that BIPOC people have experienced, and maybe recommendations in order to change those, specifically language that is typically used in a white framework that doesn't necessarily fit every individual that comes through a hiring process, especially in a large institution such as Fred Hutch. Approximate time we both worked on this project. We reviewed mainly 4 documents. Sam and I took about 42 hours or sometimes more.
So we position ourselves basically as quote unquote lifeguards getting to the summer mood here, where our duty as BIPOC people is to safeguard BIPOC inclusion in corporate spaces. We both had customer service backgrounds, telephone communication skills, but we didn't know what the actual documentation was. So we needed to survey the waters.
And so we collected numerous documentations, and this is the highlighted part. You can see some of the work that we reviewed and following some of the recommendations that we thought were pertinent in order to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, things that would not only benefit, but also make the institution inclusive, which seems to be one of the main mission goals of this institution particularly, and now many other institutions alike. And so we decided to next go into the waters and deep dive into the actual work of combing through the language and finding out in what ways we can change this to, make fit and make space for other people and BIPOC folk using different language.
Some of the documentation that was shared with us included job postings, the job descriptions themselves, the interview questions, as well as the interview process. So we looked at these, we highlighted those that we thought could be improved upon in blue, and those that needed to be reworded, we offered our own words, which we have highlighted also in yellow.
And so with this process, we wanted to find, we wanted to open the door for BIPOC people to open, find their footing, being aware that the process could be rocky, but also centering themselves and their position unapologetically. And so with this work that we did, we hope that we can be the bridge to that process and progress at the time.
So we did find some problematic items, and as a more high-level introduction to our study, we did pick out 5 threads that we thought needed to be addressed. Number 1, the institution is acknowledged, focused, and highlighted. What's problematic about that? Doesn't seem like it's problematic, but we'll get back to that later. Number 2, qualifications and requirements follow standardization, quote unquote. What's problematic about that? Maybe number 3 is much easier to digest when we say that the language is inconsistent.
Encontramos algunos artículos problemáticos que deseamos discutir. Em, Como discutió Sam anteriormente, hay 5 problemáticas que quisiéramos em, discutir en este segmento. Número 1, ¿por qué la institución es reconocida, enfocada y destacada? Sigue repitiendo los mismos errores. Y podemos discutir eso en más detalle a continuación. Número 2, ¿por qué requiere calificaciones y requisitos de estandarización? También podemos discutir eso en más detalle por las diferencias que esto puede causar. ¿Por qué el lenguaje es poder y es inconsistente? ¿Qué tipo de impacto puede causar el lenguaje que nosotros usamos en esta documentación? Eso también lo podemos discutir a continuación. ¿Qué representa un método que se adapta a todas las preguntas? Y número 5, ¿por qué la consistencia de marcos blancos de recursos humanos que son cegadoramente blancos? Y estas preguntas son los enfoques de nuestra presentación a continuación.
We compared our problematic findings, 3 of which are sampled here, with the alternative words that we offer on the right. So I'll be happy to go ahead and read what's on the left and offer a little bit of insight. And maybe Maria, you can read what we have offered on the right. Okay.
Certainly.
In the first document that we reviewed, there was a very small and almost inconspicuous invitation to apply, to applicants to apply for this job. And it just says, join us and make a difference. But we knew that this was a job that was posted for a bilingual, ergo, multicultural agent. So we offered an alternative lens into what the words could be. Maria?
And so in this small phrase that, many can pass on as standardized language, perhaps, we take a deep delve into what impact it may cause when someone like myself, someone like Sam, or other persons that don't necessarily identify as white or fit that specific framework in which these items are written. And so our suggestion was something like, we are just as committed to eliminating racial inequality within our organization and are invested in seeking allies and future employees to join us and make a difference. And so in focusing in the impact that this language itself would create, it already creates a space for inclusion without necessarily pointing that out. Kind of like, when you think of actions speak louder than words, in this case, the words are creating that action for that space to be allowed in and people to belong.
Okay, let me read the second bullet. It simply says, describe a situation when you were communicating with someone whose values, beliefs were different from your own, and in fact were offensive to you. How did you maintain professionalism and communicate effectively with that person?
In this case, we offer, were you ever in a situation when you were communicating with someone who explicitly brought into the conversation values, beliefs different than your own that were offensive to you? Can you describe the situation? How did you communicate that you have registered the offense? How did you handle the rest of the call or chat flow, email thread?
And the third bullet that we picked out was, has diversity played a role in shaping your research work management style? If so, how? Adapt to position.
In what ways has the role of diversity played a role in shaping your research, work, or management style?
For some people, without centering our own BIPOC position, we would always default to taking on the white framework that this question has emerged out of. This question has emerged out of a white framework. Why should BIPOC people be asked whether diversity has played a role in shaping their research, their work, or management style when they have represented all their lives? So We just wanted to point out the language that is currently in use so that the institution, Fred Hutch, can also take more seriously a nuanced approach in coming up with their corporate communication.
And so we follow up with some recommendations which we think may be most important out of the revisions that we did during this project. And we can start off with the, number one, start off with the land acknowledgement. What this does is it reorients HR race lens for a conscious, personally accountable repositioning and grounding, recognizing personal and institutional occupation on stolen land. Number two, center the person. What this does is that usually HR is encouraged to establish and model the supportive communication practices used by the center, but centering the people around their experiences provides unique situations and recommendations based on their own experience, their own lens, and how they process all of these happenings, right? It's different. And number three, caring is a process. So changing the language structure overall radically transforms communication points in creating more inclusive, more caring, and active job descriptions and responsibilities. The process promotes and models the quality care and compassionate approach that the center is hiring for.
So we continue with two more recommendations. We continue with number 4, inclusion is in the action. HR must use diversity, equity, and inclusion questions that allow for voices to be heard and framed in BIPOC lenses when interviewing a BIPOC candidate. So Black, Indigenous, and people of color who apply to multilingual and multicultural positions do not need to be asked white people questions. For example, additionally ask applicants what a place that completely supported them to achieve professional success would look like. What would those needs be for the institution to become more equitable? And number 5, adopt anti-racist HR perspectives. All job descriptions should be consistently written in action-oriented language under responsibilities with more supportive structured language, paying close attention to eliminating the blindingly white frameworks we have encountered here throughout the current batch of documents.
And so we conclude our presentation in this way, just giving an overview of what the work that we did. And we wanted to share that we chose to do this project in order to hopefully contribute to the change of systemic racism that has created and played a major role in disparities, not only within the healthcare sector, but in every aspect of our lives. Institutional racism is something that is more, visible nowadays, and it's something that a lot of institutions are creating space for change. And I think this is a very small portion of how we can make a big impact moving forward and contributing to the missions and goals that our own institution strives for on a daily basis.
So we'd love to know what you thought about our presentation. For more of the details, I'm sure Maria will be your resource person within the Fred Hutch Network. I'll be happy to hear from Maria as well, what you have to say. And I'd like to end with this last slide.
And this is what we recommend for these steps for BIPOC inclusion, because it is our future. So certainly, as Sam mentioned, if you all would like additional details about our research and our project, feel free to contact us, Sam Prudente, and I will have his contact information following this presentation available, or myself. We appreciate your time.
Thanks again for letting us use the current HR documentation for our study, and thank you for listening to our recommendation.
Thank you.